hope you're having a fantastic time at the Swell Summit. Our next session lead is Teja Reddy. Teja Reddy is a heartfulness meditation practitioner and trainer. She's the program facilitator of the Heartful Communications program. She's also the Chief Marketing Officer of HTC Global Services, a private global IT consulting firm. Her session offers a sample of reliable ways to build connection in relationships, preparing you for a successful leadership journey. Learn to lead with compassion, understanding, and clarity. Without further ado, I present The Connection Experiment, a heartful approach to communication with Teja Reddy.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to Experience Connection, Heartful Communication for Wellness, Leadership, and for Life. I'd like to invite you to treat this session as a reflective experience. So if you'd like, you might want to keep a journal or something nearby where you can write on and a pen or pencil that you can write with. I want to start off by saying that no matter what age you are or in what phase of life that you're in, whether you're in school, whether you're working or in between jobs, raising a family, all or none of the above, communication is arguably one of the most, if not the most important of all life skills that one can learn. It's one of the main ways that contribute to the overall well-being of ourselves and to each other. Whether it's with our friends and family, your siblings, your parents, colleagues, coworkers, and many other people that we'll meet and interact with in our lives, communication is the language of life upon which we use to build connection in all of our relationships, especially the relationship that we have with ourselves. When I started attending college, I had no idea what major I wanted to pursue. I remember feeling very anxious and lost and just completely clueless and confused. I was being pulled in several directions by my family and friends and college counselors and expectations of what everyone thought I should be doing with my life. And it wasn't until after changing my major twice in my first year of college and going into my second year where I decided to take my first communication course called Interpersonal Communication. I'll never forget how I felt that day while walking out of my first class. I felt so filled with joy and relief, a sense of lightness and excitement all at once. And I really just enjoyed the fact that I could actually use what I was learning in the classroom and apply it directly to my daily life. That being said, however, somehow throughout my academic, professional, and personal journeys, I still encountered many challenges in my interactions with certain friendships and relationships, and definitely most of all with my family members, where I just found myself not knowing how to communicate effectively in a way that I felt connected to people, even while expressing disagreement or a difference in opinion. And this often left me feeling very disappointed and misunderstood. It felt like something was missing, like I was just barely scratching the surface of such a vast subject, and that there were still several layers that I had yet to peel back and explore. And fast forward through several life-altering decisions and events up until a couple years ago when I came across and attended my very first Heartful Communication workshop. I was instantly shaken and completely blown away by my experience there. There was a huge shift that occurred for me during this program, a shift in perspective, a shift in how I looked at myself, and how I experienced and witnessed my own thoughts and my own feelings, my emotions, as well as the thoughts and feelings and emotions of others. And there was a shift in how I received the words of others. It was almost as if there were these invisible barriers that had been lifted in all of my relationships instantly. It's these barriers of judgment, of blame, of wrong understanding or perspective. And it just felt like it was lifted because I was now able to see them and see myself in a completely new way. I felt free from the habitual ways of thinking that we've been conditioned by this paradigm of duality, where things are seen as either good or bad or right or wrong. And above all, for the first time in a very long time, I felt a very profound shift in my heart. I immediately felt connected to what I was learning, and it felt so natural and in alignment with my true self. After attending a few sessions, I quickly began to realize the power of this process and how it offered an extraordinary way of understanding human behavior and how it helps to build and stay in connection with ourselves and with others. Through learning this process of heartful communication, my life has completely changed. I've learned several tools and techniques to connect not only with myself, but with others on a much deeper level. I now feel more empowered, more confident, better equipped to make decisions, and above all, I have a level of self-acceptance and self-awareness that I've never, ever had in my life. So we're nearing the end of the year, and it's been quite a year. Many of us have been faced with so many changes and challenges across the spectrum, and we've seen so much unfold in such little time. Many of us are doing distance learning. We're working from home. Some of us might have even seen changes in our living arrangements this year. We might have moved. Maybe we're living back home with our families or even spending more time alone. And maybe some of us are not able to physically meet with our family, friends, and loved ones as much as we'd like, if at all. And these various scenarios and many more can often have us feeling disconnected from ourselves, from people that we care about, and from the world around us. Now more than ever, it's important that we find and have ways in which we can connect with ourselves and each other and to stay in connection. After all, no matter how near or far we are from each other, connection is what's at the heart of all relationships, and most importantly, the relationship that we have with ourselves. In this session, we will cover what the essence of heartful communication is, along with how we can apply maybe one or two key components of this process into our lives. So you're probably asking yourself, what is heartful communication? And simply put, heartful communication is all about communicating with the heart and responding to the needs of the moment. And we'll come back to this idea of needs in just a bit. This is a process that has emerged over the years from integrating practices of the Heartfulness Institute along with the nonviolent communication process, also known as NVC, which was developed by Dr. Marshall Rosenberg. I see this process as a transformational tool when it comes to wellness, leadership, and life. When I think of my overall wellness and my sense of well-being, I'm reminded of this water experiment that was done by a Japanese researcher by the name of Masaru Emoto. In this experiment, he had tested various samples of water across many different countries and looked at the molecular structure of these water samples based on the suggestions and the words and the intentions that were made to each of these water samples. So, for example, on water samples where the intention and a note was placed on it that said words of gratitude and appreciation, like thank you, I love you, had formed beautiful crystalline structures. Whereas water samples that had been placed very negative words like I hate you, I want to kill you, had much more bizarre looking crystalline structures that were not at all come close to the other ones. And what the implications of this research really show are, imagine if such words and ideas and thoughts and intentions have such profound impacts and effects on water in any body of water. And our bodies are made up of at least 70% or more of water. So imagine what we're telling ourselves every day. I ask myself when I think of wellness, what are the kinds of things that I'm telling myself on a daily basis? What are the kinds of thoughts that I'm having about myself and about others? What does this constant inner dialogue and mental chatter that's happening inside me sound like? And what is that doing to me? So I raise that to say, if I don't have awareness and an understanding of myself, of my own thoughts and feelings and values, then I'm not in connection with myself. And if I'm not in connection with myself, how can I expect to be able to connect with others? And if I can't connect with others, where is even the question of leadership? Right? So when we speak of wellness and leadership, they both go hand in hand. Before I can learn tools and techniques to connect with others, I need to learn how to connect with myself. So how do we do that? Maybe this is a point for some quick reflection. Maybe we can take a moment to reflect on a question that I'd like to ask you. And the first question is, sorry about that. The first question is, what are some ways I use to connect with myself or center myself or to get to know myself better? So you can just take a moment and think about that. What are some ways that I use to connect with myself, center myself, or to try to get to know myself better? Maybe it's through music, writing, poetry, painting, meditation, maybe some form of physical activity or some yoga. It could be any number of ways. But just take a moment to reflect, and maybe you could write that down if you'd like. Or you can ask yourself, what are some ways that I'd like to try to build a better connection with myself and to get to know myself better? Maybe there's some ways out there that I haven't yet tried and I'd like to. So take a moment to think about that, and you can write that down for yourself as well, and we can reflect on that later. So what I want to ask you next is, can you think of a time when you had a conversation with someone and maybe it didn't go the way that you were expecting it to go? Maybe later, after it's done, you reflect back and you think, oh, perhaps, maybe you weren't in the best mood, or you were having an off day, feeling just off balance and not at your best. I can definitely think of several times and several interactions where I was not in the best state of mind, and perhaps I took all the mental baggage that I was carrying with me into an interaction or a conversation that I wasn't even ready for. And sometimes it just didn't result in the best outcome. Later on, I'd reflect and think to myself, wow, I could have totally avoided that had I been in a better mood or even taken a few moments to refresh and center myself. So what Heartful Communication does is it offers some ways for self-connection that are grounded in the heartfulness practices and in nonviolent communication. So some of these methods I've been practicing for several years now are the heart-based meditation practices, along with practicing gratitude and journaling, which has helped me tremendously. And it's a simple practice. And what this heart-centered meditation practice allows me to do is to check in with myself and become an observer rather than a victim to any of the thoughts that I might have going on within me, any of the emotions, and really allows me to feel a sense of balance and centeredness and connection with my values. This balanced state of mind that I can achieve through this practice helps me to fully be present when I'm interacting with someone so that I can listen to them entirely and respond as appropriate. In addition to practicing this heart-based meditation, as I said, doing a lot of journaling and practicing gratitude, these practices have really allowed me to learn how to use my heart as an anchor and as a guide to living my life with authenticity and with integrity. If you want to hear a little bit more about this heartfulness meditation practice, please make sure to check out Leica Dave's session on a heartful approach to servant leadership, where you can hear more about her personal journey and how meditation helped her through her leadership journey. So that was a little bit about the heartfulness practices that, and what that provides. When it comes to nonviolent communication, or NVC, this is also a heart-centered approach that essentially offers a better way of communicating with others and to resolve differences peacefully. It offers a framework for how to create and sustain effective relationships where we can communicate without judgment, without blame, and instead with compassion and with empathy, and where we can listen in a way that enables connection and understanding. And these are essential aspects of enabling leadership through wellness. So much so that Microsoft CEO Satya Nadella got a copy of Marshall Rosenberg's book on nonviolent communication for members of his senior leadership team and made sure that they read it, because he knew that this culture of backbiting, backstabbing, and undermining people was so unhealthy. He knew that as a leader, he needed to bring in a healthier, more respectful, and kind environment where people can flourish by way of using this process of NVC. So when you combine both of these heart-centered practices that heartfulness and NVC has to offer, the outcome you get is this balanced approach to compassion and understanding in your communication. So even with all that I've shared here, some of you might still be asking why? Why heartful communication? Can you imagine all the unnecessary pain that we could avoid? How we could help each other if we could just be present for one another and communicate in a way that doesn't hurt people and ourselves? Sometimes when we don't communicate well, as mentioned earlier, conflict arises, and this is a reality that we have to face in leadership and in life. So it's the tools that are offered here that help support us in maintaining connection with ourselves and others while under pressure and under the most challenging of circumstances. Because if we can't do it when we need it most, what's the point? To create and sustain these relationships that really are about integrity and mutual respect and care is also paramount to what this process offers. And it's not just through one's intention, but in the way that we use our thoughts and our language and how we listen and how we express ourselves. So why wouldn't we want to enable better understanding and better relationships and hence lead ourselves to more successful connections? That might be a better question. So now that we've explored the what and the why and the philosophy behind this process of heartful communication, here are some tools that you can use that can help support this connection and keep it alive and nourish it. So with NVC, this model is based on the premise that everything any human being has ever said or done is an attempt to meet a need, whether they are successful or not. Just share my screen with you. So whether they're successful or not in doing so, in essence, it's all human acts can be seen as an attempt to meet needs. Whether it's rubbing your forehead to meet the need for comfort, whether it's taking a shower to meet the need of hygiene, whether it's giving someone a hug to meet the need for affection and care, all human acts can be seen as an attempt to meet needs. So in heartful communication, we learn how to refocus our attention not on the blame and the judgment, but on how to hear what is truly in the heart of the other person and what is in our own heart through the field of what Dr. Marshall Rosenberg calls human needs, or human motivators. And I'll give you an example. Here's a list of some very commonly found human needs and values. And this isn't exhaustive. There's definitely several other needs that are not on this list. But here's just a glimpse at some of them. And I'm going to give you a quick example of something from my real life that happened. For example, if my brother were to come up to me one day and say, "You're so selfish. All you think about is yourself and you think of no one else." Habitually, I want to react and say, "I'm your sister. How can you say that after all I've done for you?" And through this process of identifying needs and feelings, we learn to pause and become more needs literate. And it definitely takes practice. So when you hear someone say, "You're so selfish, all you think about is yourself, you don't think of anyone else," what could this person possibly be feeling right now? So if my brother said this to me, what was he feeling in this moment? It's possible he was probably feeling kind of upset with me, right? Maybe just very frustrated and annoyed. And what is the underlying need behind that statement that's not being clearly articulated? What is the value? What is he longing for? What's important to him when he says, "You're so selfish, all you think about is yourself"? He's probably longing for some support, right? Maybe some consideration, some help, some care, some concern. And so when someone says this, or another statement that could be equally triggering like this, through this process of heartful communication, we learn to hear that not as an accusation or a judgment or a blame, but as a longing in the heart of that person who is speaking for care, for consideration, and for respect. So we learn to tune out the harshness of the blame. We learn how to not hear that, but instead we hear what is deeply in the heart of the other person and connect that with the heart of ourselves. So that's how it truly becomes a heart-centered way of interacting. So I'm going to pull up a few more exercises or just some examples that we can kind of go through together and see if we can identify what the feelings and needs are here. So when someone says, "Why did you do that exercise with them? That was going to be in my session." What are some feelings that could be associated with the person that's saying this? "Why did you do that exercise with them? That was going to be in my session." Disappointed? Annoyed? Probably feeling really irritated. And what are the underlying needs? What could a potential underlying need be here? The need for contribution? Definitely a need for some clarity. What's happening? I thought, this was going to be in my session. And for some respect, some consideration. Absolutely, why not? Do another one. "You're always late and you never spend any time with me." I'm sure all of us have heard that at some point or another. You're always late and you never spend any time with me. What could they be feeling when they say this? They could be feeling sad, maybe disappointment there. Definitely sounds like they could be feeling alone and frustrated. And what is the need here? There could be several needs. A need for attention, need for consideration, respect, some closeness, and could also be companionship. Absolutely. So again, these are needs, the fundamental human motivators that manifest in the heart. And they could also be called longings, values, aspirations, but really it's what matters to you. What do you value? What's important to you? What do you care about? And through this, process of what we call spot the need, the intention here is not to learn quick tips and tricks to get what you want or to solve an issue with a quick fix. The intention here through this whole entire process is to create a respectful and compassionate quality of connection so that everyone's needs can be taken into consideration peacefully. Not so that they're necessarily met, but so that they can be taken into consideration, because it's this awareness and understanding that is the first step to building this bridge of connection. So if we can learn to use these tools for connection that Heartful Communication offers us, then we are much better equipped to connect with ourselves, to receive others, and to express ourselves in a way that establishes an intention for connection, not correction. So in closing, something that you can probably take back with you, the next time, maybe some practice or reflection that you can also do for yourselves, are to identify a difficult real life scenario that you might be facing. Maybe it involves a disagreement or a conflict of some sort. And when you think about this conflict, ask yourself, what am I feeling? What is it that, as Dr. Marshall Rosenberg says, what is it that's alive in me right now when I think of this scenario? What is it that I long for? What do I value? What's important to me? What's my need? And then I also encourage you to ask yourself, what is it that the other person is feeling, perhaps? Can I truly put myself in their shoes and get into their world and empathize with them and try to understand maybe what's important to them as well? And so this is just, identifying feelings and needs. It's just one small part of this approach that we've covered today in this session. There is a whole entire process around this, around these tools for connection, and several other aspects that we learn about this program. We also cover things like how to speak without judgment, without blame, without threats or accusations. And we learn how can we listen compassionately with empathy? How can we work with our own anger and transform it? How can we resolve conflict? And so many other things. But this is all that we could cover for now. And I just want to thank you so much for tuning into this session on Heartful Communication. If you'd like to learn more, I'm going to just go ahead and provide some links and resources here for you to check out. And to find out more, you can also, there's an email down there for any questions that you might have. I hope you found this interesting and useful, and I hope to see you in one of our upcoming Heartful Communication workshops. Thank you so much. Take care.